explain it to me, I guess, but I do know that it encompasses our well. It looks like property lines almost right to our buildings. I do not feel that's right. The county road, 66 feet wide, should be measured from the center of the road, 33 feet on each side. Would say that'd be the thing to do. It's completely off the charts. I was born and raised in Bluffton. My folks lived just above me. Edie and I bought our place in 78. 74. We lived there.
74, but,
Yeah.
Or 78, but we lived there since 74.
Yeah. And
The well was put in 19.
before we got there, so I don't. We just somebody to explain to me why this all changed. Why there's any reasoning behind this?
And why are we the only property
That's
that is moved over the center of the road?
See, it comes down, and as soon as it gets to the next road, it goes right back to the center line where it should be. For some reason. Makes no sense.
Yeah, now that you see that, yeah.
But see, the old store sits right across the.
Oh, that's corner of that.
Right.
So,
And
It's
it's,
been there since 1900.
yeah, so that didn't move. I mean,
it's only 10 feet off the road.
Yeah.
So is that the reason why they?
the original plat that's come off was from back in 1856.
Yes, it's
That's
1800s is the.
1856 is the
Yeah.
original plat,
You're right.
and it's just,
Yeah.
and there's no pins. They tried finding the pins. There was like 6 section pins probably in town, and they're right in the middle of them roads, and they took a backhoe back then, they dug 20-foot circumference around trying to find the pin. There was no pins to go by, so I don't know. Yeah,
The center of road comes up,
yeah, and now you look at that, why is that?
and it goes back out from our property.
Yeah.
Why
Seems like our property, the one that affects.
Yeah,
Nobody else is ours.
yeah, now that you look at it,
Right.
yeah.
It created a big stir.
Well,
Looks like they just went off the store building, or something.
in your
whatever.
surveyor's comments, when he was
That's
surveying
what
this,
he did, but
on page 11 back here, he said that the previous surveyor, Lindsay,
Yep,
that he went off the center of the road. Must not have felt that was right because it took 9 feet of that old
Of the
store
door.
building. So what he did in page 12, he shot off for a reference point off the overhang of the old store. Which, like I say, it's only 10 feet off the road. It's totally in the right of way.
yeah.
If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm just,
I can see where the whole.
Yeah.
It created a big stir between the Christophers and the Froms.
yeah, that's where it all started. We didn't have nothing to do. Everything was fine. Well, it was all come down on us, but, so I asked your surveyor guy, he said, well, what does my neighbor, be moving everything over 10 feet or whatever? What is my neighbor gonna think when I tell her that I own 10 feet of your property? And response, that's not my problem. Maybe it's not, but whatever. I just, between the two of us, it's, causing a lot of emotional distress.
Yeah.
I don't sleep well, things like this.
and when he changed it or whatever, we were never notified.
No, till later,
We figured it out on our own.
so I talked to Jon Lubke about this when he was the chair. He said, I'll take care of it. Okay, that's fine, John. I've known John all my life. So a couple of weeks go by, or 3 weeks, I didn't hear it. So I called him and he said, well, do you want to own a quarter of the road? I said, oh, not really. I just want what's right, Growing up, if you look at the tree line there, that's where the fence line was. All them fence lines are right in that tree line. I can take you there today and show you where there's fence in the trees yet. There's some posts in there yet.
So under a special circumstance, it's going through your well right now, the line.
Oh,
Right.
In
definitely,
a
yes.
special circumstance, would it ever work to just vacate that section so that the well is
So
on the property?
if I may.
Yes, you may.
So, I'm not gonna try to comment why it's this way or whose fault it is or anything, but the engineer's office has prepared documents so we could set a public hearing and vacate 11 feet off of that line back to them. That would make our road narrower, but not property we need to try to alleviate what we can. So I have documents here that to set a public hearing for a couple weeks from now, if you're willing to do that, to give them 11 feet to at least move that.
So they're
Yeah,
well.
if you go to
Road right of way.
road right of way. So if you go back one map, whoever's controlling the map. Can we go back one? Oh yeah, where's the one that has the
Brings it-
proposed?
Probably about right to where that fence line originally
You'll
was.
see it on a, you see a red line.
I have a map here and I thought that was up there on the first map.
It was.
Yeah, if you
John,
go,
can you go back to the previous screen, please?
the two previous, I think.
Two previous screens?
We had a similar problem in Conover where the road right of way appeared to be right through the middle of a living room.
Yeah, and I mean,
Right.
it's just,
And we adjusted that and put the right of way back where it needed to be and fixed the problem. And we had a septic system similar for him.
Sorry,
Exactly.
if you want to talk, that's fine. But the proposal on this map that Mike prepared would be to vacate 11 feet right along here back to them out of our right of way. That would be.
You guys are okay with that?
Right?
Well,
because that would
is my
include.
well gonna be on my side? Yep. Or
Yeah,
where's it gonna be?
That's the whole point.
The way
We
they
had,
got it, they're way over. It's completely,
Yeah, the way this one here looks.
yeah, it's up the building, from that building to my well, it's gotta be 12, 15 feet at least.
so we went and shot the, concrete, there's a concrete encasement of the well area. And it came,
There.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's
so,
Thank you.
you can see that there's a small, thin dark line of the outline of where we, surveyed the concrete edge of the well. Okay, that surrounds the well, and that was 10 feet and something small. And so we said, well, we want the entire thing without question
Yeah.
to be part of the Dawley property. And therefore, the negotiations through Mark Vick, he said, well, there's not a whole lot that we're gonna do around here, so, for this situation, being as your wells there, there's not a whole lot that we see wrong with vacating the right of way at that point.
So now, is that all gonna line up with everybody else that's going up the hill?
No, because one of the issues that I think you are on is that you're a section line, and so that section line described that in the 1856 document. So, that might be a problem later, but that's the reason why this situation happened is the descriptions in the 1850s were less precise, and this is a common problem. You have to take things done from way back
you just-
when.
You got a map from 1850, they don't
Right.
need, but you just have a map, no inscription, no nothing.
So that north line is
That-
the section line, so
Yep.
that's why it's different all of a sudden, not,
Yes.
Yeah,
I
Well,
mean, it looks weird, but
it's different all of a sudden because we had, the county was determined in 2019 that these lines needed to line up with something that's more precise. And so there was a big jigsaw puzzle that,
I didn't mean like all of a sudden time-wise, I mean like that line isn't arbitrarily the change, it's the change in the section, so.
Yep.
So we can't really tie what's in this part to the one northern part, because those are in a different section.
section.
yes, and then, yes, exactly right.
So why couldn't we move it back to the river fence line? That was that.
Those specifics, I'm not prepared to speak on right now. I'm prepared to tell you that this is what we think is a remedy. And
It's really-
we're going to negotiate on that, but the issue here is, 55 feet are pretty narrow. And we think this is, I mean, this is pretty fair.
Blue line, and we're only just looks like a few feet. So you're moving it over to the red line.
Yeah.
11 feet. 11 feet,
Okay.
which would be close to the other
Yeah.
line on the north side. But it
Like,
isn't
as I said,
exact.
let's get your well on your property
Right.
to give you a foot or, I mean, so you're,
Nice one.
that's what I.
Yep, yep.
That's what I.
That's good. Good docs too.
So I mean, it just make it cleaner. You give an easement and the easement just never works good.
No.
You just want it. That's why I told Mike, I said, hey, let's see if we come up with a vacation. Just make the whole thing cleaner, simpler. We don't have to do it again.
Okay.
Because if you do an easement, easements are always there and they just never go, you know.
Right.
And that's why I said, I went and talked to both of them and I said, hey.
Well, it's
And
one of them things.
it's just it's just a bad deal that you got all them lots in Bluffton and it's never really been surveyed and all of a sudden, where do you start and where do you stop?
I just assumed
If,
they would start from the center.
yeah,
You know,
but
you
there's
just
no
raise-
point, where's the point you start from?
Since 18.
You know,
Yeah,
it's,
the road never changed. I've lived there all my life.
Yeah, that's what I mean. it's just
It sounds like a logical solution.
yeah,
We could go around.
yeah, if that works,
Agreeable to
that's-
people, I would-
yeah.
And you changed all them lines, so the problem we have, we
And everything.
never get up in age.
And there'll be a property pin. There'll be a property corner.
Look at it, see, well, I think, you know, so they're
Yeah.
gonna go on.
Yeah. So, okay.
So I've got paperwork. We can set the public hearing. I penciled it in as the 15th at 10 a.m. So for the board to be able to
What time?
basically give you that property, they have to hold a public hearing here first.
January
So
15th.
that would be when we could do it,
January.
about the soon we could do it.
I moved to hold a hearing on January 15th for the vacation of the Dawley right away.
Second,
We have a motion and second for, public hearing
10 a.m.
for January 15th at 10 a.m. for the Dawley property.
It's a roll call.
Shirley?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Dick?
aye,
Steve?
Aye.
I also passes unanimous.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you know, we take care of the boulevard out there, we mow it.
Yep.
Fix everything, even when the snowplow goes through, that's enough every year.
Don't push your luck.
Good luck.
yeah, yeah.
All right, that sounds good.
Yep.
I appreciate your time. All right.
Yep,
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Next on the agenda, Jon Lubke, GIS Director, Annex AV project update. And the saga continues.
Can I change the screen from in here, John?
No, because actually Scott Logston's sitting at my desk.
Oh,
He's gonna take care of it.
thanks, Scott.
I copied you, so I kept John, since John has to be working with the company to get this resolved, I went ahead and sent the Nancy message to begin with, but I sent you a copy of it. Basically saying that we're unhappy with what we have so far. And so they came back with this change order that John can go into more detail, but basically to try to get different speakers. Because they're saying these speakers have an issue conflicting with the microphones, so they're going to put different speakers on the wall, pointed more back there.
It'd be more directional speakers.
So that volume back there doesn't get picked up by this microphone and create the feedback. They're claiming that they never knew that was part of the project that we wanted originally.
I want to ask a question. Shirley, you and I were here for that sales presentation, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And my memory was that we specifically said to that CTI person that one of our main issues was our audience was unable to hear the speakers well from the table. Is that your recollection, Shirley?
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
And if you
And we can look it up on the video too.
Yeah, and if you remember, right, we did also, as we were investigating the building itself, we were downstairs in the boiler room. Shirley mentioned the potential of a lawsuit or something to that effect, and we talked in great detail about.
Well, we need to be ADA compliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was that was one of our driving concerns that we expressed to that individual CTI. So I don't look very favorable to this change order at all.
I would say, why even use the front two speakers? Use the two in the back would probably be adequate for providing.
Well, and that's how it's configured right now. These two aren't actually working. Those are the only.
I believe they are. I mean, I think if you stand over here when there was stuff coming, it sounded like there was sound coming out. And then this is unacceptable.
Right. Yeah.
That should be over here, not there. I mean, $5,000. This is nothing.
We've gained
Those are, the owl did as good a job.
Still got the owls in there, basically.
Yeah. So I wish somebody come and meet with us in person, I guess. And
Yeah,
that's
I
probably
actually
nice.
tried to reach out to them last week in email and didn't hear anything.
And did we have the video of the meeting with them?
We recorded, well, somebody in the communities recorded all the
Yeah.
meetings this year. So that meeting, not the one that you and
No,
I had.
When they were
I
online.
was talking about when you and I and John and
Yeah.
all, we were here, went through the
No,
building.
we did make it clear at that.
That's my recollection. That's why I asked Shirley if that was her recollection.
The
I think
problem,
you
the
recall
problem is that the contract you signed with them didn't have that in there.
Right. And I mean, I didn't know what to ask for. I mean, when they were
They
here.
had a special name for
It
it. but
said
the-
AV equipment and that covers the
Yeah.
room.
Well, and you know, the day that they finished installing, Fatima and I were here and we're like, hey, we can't hear anything. And all of a sudden the technician is like, well, that's audience validation and that's not part of the contract. And this is the first time hearing of it. And my response was, this term audience validation, this is the first time we're hearing of it. I mean,
Why wouldn't that be included in audio visual?
That was our instructions to them.
Especially when we told them that's
I think we should look at when we met with the guy online. And probably it will come up that we wanted people to be able to hear in the audience. When our first meeting with that guy over,
right.
if we look back at the recordings of the meeting
on YouTube.
on YouTube.
I did visit with Andy last week about this some, and he said that he would recommend us trying the change order to see if they can make it work. Or he gets involved with trying to undo the contract we have.
Right.
Because the change order, although it's a little more money and the whole price tag isn't a huge amount. And it'll be more of a fight to try to get money back and get them to take their equipment away and start over. And it's gonna take you quite a while, but that was his recommendation, but he was, willing to work with whichever way you want to do it.
So does the change order, I didn't read it.
It says they
Off
will,
the table,
I think that's part of it. It doesn't say that specifically, but I.
because he said
And
the
they've got to write it
proposal
out specific.
we will
They're gonna-
mount
Yeah,
on the ceiling, one that will take care of the room. This is not on the ceiling and it's not taking care of it.
It's not on the change order.
So
If we want to spell that better. If we can't trust them from what we thought we were getting when we talked to them, they better spell out every inch of what they're doing in my mind.
I think they should
Yeah.
go up here personally and represent it.
Yeah, I know, I can feel your pain and I understand the whole issue and the problems, but I guess my recommendation would be to also move forward, just because we've got so much time
yeah.
invested in this, and money. I mean, that's.
And if this fixes the problem rather than we'll be sitting here for how long trying to fight, get it out, we'll be another here 6 months trying to
Can you move this
figure
over?
something.
I can't, I would have to have them move it, but I would think that that's something that they could do. I
That,
mean, this was just a temporary thing to try to separate the microphone from the speakers.
what they'll probably do is put the wall speakers on and see if that works. And then if it does, we can demand this to be back on the ceiling over at this end.
Right.
On the change
But
order, they,
have-
go ahead.
But having them put it up there and put the speakers in and find out it still doesn't work, then they remounted it again and not accomplished what we wanted.
How much are they charging for the speakers?
$1,700.
Well, actually, no, of the 1,300, 912 is implementation services, which I interpret as labor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
the
think that
speakers
that's-
themselves are 700.
I mean,
Which is
I think it's expensive just for the speakers, and I think they should only be charging us for the speakers.
Not the
The
labor.
implementation part, that's on them.
You're already being billed for that.
Do we not have speakers we could lock on the wall? Someplace, really?
Well, you gotta have a directional. I would agree with John, it's a directional speaker,
Special speaker.
can be. a
If
lot.
it works with the equipment already installed.
Any speaker is directional. It's meant to-
I mean, Mark, do you want to work with me and we'll try to get somebody face to face? Talk through this.
I think they should come to a meeting
Maybe we can get them to come
here,
next week.
or if they could do it virtually.
Mhm.
I think we need to talk. And then meantime, we should review on our first meeting on YouTube, what we actually told the guy.
I'm gonna research that. I will find that recording.
That'd be great.
Right.
I will- Whatever. I-
So we aren't gonna sign this now. And we'll leave it to be more continuing saga next week. Okay.
Good.
What happened to the bulbs that they took out of here?
They're here somewhere. We can have them put back in.
Yeah, I could put them in. I just didn't know they are.
No, they're here. They could be in
Might be.
the.
Or maybe back there. but-
I think they're.
We should get those in before the next meeting. Great, thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Next on the agenda, 11:10, Mike Kueny, County Engineer, Budget and other road matters.
Bringing Nick along here. Done this before.
And Howard County wasn't open today. They had today as a holiday.
Really?
Wow. And thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll kind of leave the discussion on the budget here. I will point out too, that I found out in this process that, in our county, we do things a little different. And I found out we're one of few in the state that actually run our budget on the auditor's side rather than the
Yeah,
DOT side. So,
don't get me in trouble with your auditor though.
so it's the same language, but it's kind of a different, a little bit different to it as well. We have to deal with both the DOT side and the auditor side, but I guess, how do you guys normally do this? Do I need to go through each line by line or just kind of hit the big ones? And
Get the
you guys have
highlights,
any
maybe.
questions about it? So I guess on the first page, which the first page was front and back, and then it's not front and back, but we did it. So the second line from the right, that's the existing fiscal year, and that'll be the case on all the documents. And then the far right is the proposed FY25. We did make a couple of changes to the revenue to the current fiscal year, one of which is road use tax in time 21. We typically see anywhere from 5 to 10% increase in that when it's all said and done. That's a good thing that the DOT, in my opinion, they give us a number for our budget. We typically get more. You know, they're trying to estimate how many gallons of gas is purchased and how many, licenses are purchased and whatnot. And I'd rather the DOT shoot low and then we end up with more money than vice versa. In the 15 years that I've been doing it, it's only happened once where the DOT's been low. Typically they've been anywhere from 3 to 10% high. So that's a good thing. We're always going to have extra revenue. So we increased it by 3% on that revenue line item. So I'll kind of just go through Really, the existing,
I'll touch too on that. If you see on the second line down, the receipts from property taxes, because your rural valuation is down, the maximum amount you can transfer is actually less than last year.
Last year, yeah.
So that's why that number is a little bit lower.
so yeah, those numbers are directly from Ben. The road use tax received the time 21. Those are numbers that we received from the DOT. The bridge replacement funds, that's projects that we let through the DOT that we get reimbursed money on. So it's kind of an in and an out. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the construction line item of the budget. Under miscellaneous, there's some sale of equipment. If you remember when we purchased that motor grader back in September, we actually made the motion to purchase it for the full amount, and then we would sell the motor grader potentially on Purple Wave or wherever. Well, when you do it that way, you have to have the expenditure line item back farther in the budget as the full price. And then you have to have a revenue line item for that amount. You know, if you're trading it in, it all looks as just one expenditure, but it's a lower dollar amount. So that's why that sale of equipment is up a little bit higher. Other than that, there's not a lot of change to the receipts. The third page here then is a summary of the expenditures. And so we'll probably, every page in the back fills this third page, except for construction. So in FY24, construction is 600,000, and that used to be higher. I think it was 101.2 or 1.5 million. That was specifically because Bridge 307 was going to get let, and it did not get let. So that construction line item is being reduced to 600,000. However, in FY25, that bridge is now in that 1.440. It includes Bridge 307, which is southwest of Ridgeway on 230th Street. That bridge is estimated to be just shy of $1.2 million. Now that money will get reimbursed. So that's part of the revenue on the other side. That's why we have 1.2 million on the revenue on that bridge line item. Also included in that $1.4 million is the driveway bridge off of River Road that we've been discussing. There's an additional $155,000 that we estimate we're going to need for that project. So that's in that 1.44 million. And then there's a bridge also southwest of Ridgeway. It's on a 90-degree curve. It's on 225th Street, but it's as it turns to 370th Avenue. It's a short structure. We've gotten estimates already on a box culvert to be put back in there. And so that's $85,000 is what we're estimating for that. Is there anything on construction that you guys, now this does not include all of the construction. This is only construction that would be paid for locally. It does not include anything that's, can be paid out of the FM account. It does not include anything that gets paid directly from our bridge fund. This is.
307, that's the one on the Turkey River.
Correct.
That
Yeah.
Closed, that's
Currently
closed now, yeah.
Is this the breakdown of that bridge construction back here? These three, 420, 431, 432?
No,
Okay.
no, that's different.
So where in the budget pages here is this construction for the 1.440? Is it itemized somewhere there?
There's not, no, the Excel file that we were working with did not have a specific
Okay,
location, so we just had to type in the 1.44.
Okay.
on these $3 amounts that we.
307 driveway bridge on southwest of Crisco and 225th Street.
Or Southwest of Ridgeway. Both those, both 307 and 313 are both west of Ridgeway. So no, the construction does not have its own tab. In this.
what'd you say?
Well, he said Crisco earlier, so
Oh,
He just said southeast of Preston, that needs to be right.
That's right.
we got that taken.
Okay. Page 4 is under administration and engineering. Not a lot of change here. On the current FY24, that is reduced due to not having an engineer and an assistant for a period of time. That's reflected in both administration and engineering. Other than that, no huge change from year to year. The following page then is the page that Shirley, you had mentioned. The 400 is maintenance. And so that's 420, 431, and 432 is bridges, pipe, and box. And so that's stuff that does not go on our construction program. But like that 350 and that 100, that's for work on the Frankville Road, because that's next in line for our paving project. And so we need to replace a bunch of pipe underneath of that road. So our local crews will be out doing that. And getting all them replaced. But that's what those dollar amounts are right there. A little bit further down on that page is a code 466, which is asphalt, concrete 8 inches plus. Again, it's different on the DOT side as it is on the auditor side for language in here, but ultimately this is like crack sealing, putting a seal coat out on a road, and we do not have any of that planned for this fiscal year or for 25. So that's why you'll see in the far two left columns, there was 650, there was 870.
Yeah, we did old stage, didn't we? Yeah.
That type of stuff is important to do. It holds your asphalt together, but you'll see later, we don't have room for it in the budget right now. You know, and we really don't have a plan on that. You know, being that I'm only been helping out part-time, that might be something that we have to add in for next year if we need to get some more maintenance on some of things like that. But as of right now, we don't have anything like that in the budget. What this will entail is our guys doing the Durapatching. You know, it's that tank that is pulled behind the dump truck with the chips and that they can spray that themselves. So there is enough room in there for little bits, you know, patching here and there. You know, for example, we had that issue up by the Northwind School. You know, that type of stuff goes into this line item. And so that's why that's down as compared to the two on the left. But we do not have any crack sealing or seal coating in the local budget. So for the next page then, if there's any questions on that page, I guess maybe. Yeah. Snow and ice, we really didn't change a whole heck of a lot. Just increase some of the line items for some, again, all these have some increases just for raises in there. The second half of that, the second box down, there's a traffic controls line item there. Code 593 has pavement markings. So we have budgeted $250,000 for pavement markings. That is to do the entire county, both edge line and center line. And so what Winneshiek County's past practice is 1 year they do everything and the next year they only do center line. If there is somewhere where you want to cut, you could potentially save yourself $50,000 to $75,000 a year if you reduce this. So what I do in Howard County is I just do everything every other year. So I go the west half of the county, I do everything, center line and edge line. The next year I do center line and edge line on the east half of the county. Now, so the paint company is in every year. So if there's a 90-degree curve where the edge line is bad, you know, from the snow plows the previous winter, we have them touch that location up. If you went to the way that I did it in Howard County, you potentially save that $50,000 to $75,000 a year. You're going to essentially spend half of that, $250 every year. Instead of $115, $250, $115, $250, it'd be $125, $125, $125.
Be easier to budget too.
Yeah. Now that being said, you're going to have center line that is 2 years old in some locations. I've actually put an email out to all the surrounding counties, and for example, Almaquee County, they don't put edge line down except for in curves. Clayton County, I believe, was the same way. They don't put edge line down. I don't have those emails in front of me right now, obviously, but you guys do more than everybody else in Northeast Iowa, and I think I do the second most out of everybody else in Northeast Iowa. And in Howard, I'm looking at reducing it, because at one point, probably about 12 years ago, I chose to do edge line every 4 years instead of every other year. It's still there, but that goes through, 4 cycles of a snow wing.
That's what I was gonna ask is, third year, maybe.
And that's an option if you decided to reduce it and go every 3rd year on the white edge line, that would certainly help. Because the white edge is the most costly of everything, because it's a solid line times 2. The center line, you've got quite a few stretches where it's dashed. And so it's one dash line down the middle of the road. So edge line is the costly thing.
Is there any data on edge line versus no edge line in car accidents or things like that? Any safety data on that?
Not that I'm specifically aware of, but there very well could be. We could look at that.
How does that affect self-driving assist cars that key off of the lines?
Yeah, I guess I don't know for sure how that.
Good question.
I mean, obviously, that's going to be an issue as more of them have that. And
Point of
They sure-
order, I have a car such as that and it gives me a cue if I go over.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, they don't put as much reflective flakes in the paint anymore, but those edge lines really do help when it's foggy.
I agree. You will hear from some of the public that they wish those edge lines were there. But it's something that my understanding is you're not legally required to have them. And you do more than all the counties surrounding us. If it could be something, and you don't have to make that decision right now by any means, but it is something to have in the back of your mind, is if you want to, reduce some spending, you have some room to reduce some spending right there if you went, a little bit backwards on your, might be something for a topic on the next 6 county meeting that we have too, and discuss it with everybody, and it's a good idea, so. Yeah. I will tell you, actually, there was a federal document that came out that was going to have standards for reflectivity on those pavement markings. There was a fear that it was going to cause counties to have to paint twice a year instead of every other year, or what, it was going to be twice a year. And so I believe the federal government backed off on that because they knew that the local governments would actually not even put paint down, because per their federal requirements, we don't have to have paint down on our roads because we don't have enough traffic on them. So they felt like it's better to not have reflectivity standards met and still have paint than no paint at all, because counties wouldn't be able to afford painting twice a year, let alone every other. So, so that was a good thing that got changed in some reflectivity information. The next page, the top portion is equipment. So in the current fiscal year, there's a line for motor grader. So that's the motor grader that we have yet to receive. That one is $359,500, and that is specifically with trade-in value. That's the one where we're going to trade in machine 111. And because it's trade-in, we don't have to have the full price, because the expenditure to Ziegler will be just this $359,500. The tandem trucks is all the trucks that we have received and the remainder that we owe on them. The mower, that $27,598 is the remaining balance of the mower that you guys ordered, where $100,000 was coming out of that roadside line item, and the remainder was coming out of secondary roads. So that's that $27,000. And then there's a $48,000 pickup in both fiscal years, just because there's so many pickups that you almost got a budget to have a pickup every year. But then on the top of that line for FY25 on the far right is that $437, and that's the full price of that motor grader that we ordered I believe back in September. And again, the difference between the full price and the trade-in, we have that figured in the revenue. So that's the equipment line items.
We get no municipality on vehicles anymore, is there discount or did somebody step up?
We're not seeing it in trucks, in pickups, but I think that's still in there for dump trucks.
Dump trucks, oh, okay, it is.
Governmental discount.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, I knew everybody was out of the pickup.
I think there still is some discount in that amount.
See, the state had a white one now. I don't know if they didn't get the orange or what. They're driving a white one around. I don't know what the deal is.
Not a lot of change in the equipment operation lines. Under the parks line item, that is a little bit higher, is at 470,000. That's because of the transmission that we had to replace. So that's up a little bit there. We don't have it, so it's back down to 400,000 in the FY25. Something else is jumping out at me as a note on that page, unless anybody else has.
What does safety include?
That's most likely, I mean, I know safety clothes would go in there. I don't know if anything else, what other items would go into that. I don't know how often you guys purchase that. There might be, I'll have to look into that to see.
Yeah.
Pretty consistent past years.
They, I mean, all of the crew has reflective outerwear, whether it's vests in the summer or coats in the winter and that kind of stuff. So,
And all of these line items include payroll as well. So.
Yeah.
So safety training, I don't know if it's built there. So that could be something like that as well.
Is there anything in there for the training for like the maintainer? You talking, I didn't send him skill for maintainer training?
Not specifically, but you're only talking a couple $1,000s for that. So that there is training line items. Like, for example, in administration and engineering. Not specifically in here, but I believe that goes into the subsistence line item.
All right. I knew it wasn't a huge dollar amount, it just.
No,
Just a needed amount.
Showing us a donation.
but that was, Michael, we recommended sending people to school regularly to learn how to operate the blades.
It's not been done in the past, and I think, I mean,
On a regular
your whole
basis.
career, you've done that in Howard
Yeah.
County pretty much.
So we, they have, and I can bring him up to speed on that outside the board meeting.
DMP, what is the abbreviation? Varies. 664. Last day or?
Okay, yeah, I haven't gotten that one yet. That's corrugated metal pipe.
Oh,
That's
okay.
your orders that you
Yeah.
probably put in a stock
Right,
order
yeah.
every single year. You know. So yeah, on that page, there was really no change. Just kind of the typical stuff that you had in there from previously. On the second to last page.
Back on 650, where we have no entry for sundry, what would that have been?
I think a lot of times that if they didn't know where to put it, they put it under sundry. So hopefully we'll have a better accounting of the spending and put it in one of the actual expense
We
lines.
ran into that.
That's on monthly, lots of times. We don't know what.
Yeah.
Where's, it's stop popping out at me, the gravel
Oh, that
under
was a-
materials.
that was a big 2.2 million, I saw.
Yeah.
Which page? I missed it.
Granular.
There's the fourth page.
Oh, here it is, 461. Got it. Thanks.
I'll maybe jump to the last page here too. This is essentially your building and properties. And so we do have $500,000 in there for a new locust shop. That's based on a dollar amount that I was given by a contractor, because I'm looking at doing some stuff over in Howard County as well. That number is since August. I don't know if there's been an increase since then or not. Now, the way that I build shops over there aren't necessarily the way that you guys have built shops over here. So you know, mine might be, mine is wood built versus steel built. You know, so we'd have to have that kind of conversation. Have Mike and Jeff come over and take a look at one of my new shops that I've built over in Howard County. Just to see what it looks like. And that's kind of how this number came about, is from how I've constructed things. If you want to do something differently, then that number could fluctuate, obviously, but. And then with that, with everything that we have in here on the backside of page 1, there's, excuse me, the page 3, which is the second sheet of paper. The second to last number on the far right is $1,005,161. That's the projected carryover at the end of FY25. Right below the yellow line.
Got it.
We've always shot for at least $1 million. And so we're right barely there. It doesn't always happen, but that's where we've tried to be. We had about I think we had close to 1.5 million in June of 2008. And then we had the big flood, and they were glad that they had the money, but they spent it all up, and we spent 10 years trying to get that carryover built up again.
Yeah, I would not recommend going below. I mean, yeah, it can happen if you have something, but yeah, I do recommend trying to get that even up, you know, built up higher. The size of Winneshiek County should have it up higher. And I know Winneshiek County has traditionally gone into loans with the general fund, and if you can get away from not having to do that, that's my understanding of why that happens. Is it's because in the fall is when you typically have your biggest expenses. You got a bunch of rock being paid for because your contract rock has just gotten hauled and paid for. A lot of times our equipment ends up showing up in the late summer, and then you're paying for it in the fall. It just seems like, and again, I'm speaking more on Howard County's behalf here, is my biggest months of expenditures are August, September, and October.
Sure.
And that's when your carryover comes into play. If you have enough carryover to be able to handle those extra expenditures, you know, then you're not having to go after a loan through the general fund in order to get that done. But it will take years of building it up.
Yeah, having $1 million 15 years ago is a lot different than $1 million now.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, you need more.
Should be $1,700,000 now.
Yeah. But it's hard to build it up, so.
Everything keeps going up, and
Mhm.
now we'll be in trouble for 4 years. So we're not gonna be able to do much anything.
Any other questions
No.
at all, or? And, you know, there might be something that we missed, and I mean, this is still in the draft phase for us, you know, hopefully Mike will continue to look into it, and, you know, if there's something else that we think needs to be added or subtracted, or like I said, the pavement markings is something that you guys can talk about. And typically in the spring is when you would go out for your pavement marking quotes. You know, you can look at that before we before you guys approve that maybe.
So there's a question, if they decide, let's not do edge length this year, just to save the money, you think you could probably reduce that one back to the 115,
Correct.
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That would just do the center lines one more year as a buy them one more time.
Or maybe the idea might be to go to center lines and half the edge lines, like Nick is, doing in Howard County. It's begin to get us a little less savings, but try to start that program, which would eventually give
He does half of everything and then half of everything, correct?
everything center line, half the edge lining, and then the next year
No, I
go
do, I do everything on
every other,
No painting on half the county,
on every other year.
Yeah.
And then go back to on the other.
So center line goes every other year also.
so full painting.
So are you still getting your center lines every other year,
Correct.
like we are, they're just split.
Well, you're
half
doing
and
center
half.
line every.
I mean, they're edge lines every other year.
Correct.
But your center lines, then you'd only be getting every other year, whereas now we're doing them every year.
Yeah, so that would be an
Cut
option.
in half.
But I'm gonna be talking to my board about reducing edge line to maybe go into 3 years or something, because it's just, it's an expense. But you're right, in foggy scenarios, they are helpful. I know they are helpful to people. But is there other areas, if you want to reduce rock, any area that you cut, you're gonna hear from the public. Whether or not you reduce rock, if you put less of the rock down in the wintertime, you're gonna hear that from the public. Now, we don't have any way of knowing how much, this last fall, we talked about directing the employees to put less down. They're not gonna put it out on straight stretches where people shouldn't need to have that extra traction. They're gonna put it in curves and the vertical and horizontal curves and stop signs so that it's in the safety sensitive locations. Will that start to reduce if the shops start following that? There's potential that you're gonna reduce some anyways just by doing that. But, if you reduce it even more, you're gonna have people that are gonna be upset about that. If you decide to not do, bridge projects out of the local fund, you're gonna have people that are upset that you don't, aren't keeping the system up. If you don't replace equipment, you're gonna be in a scenario where your equipment's gonna be old, and I would highly recommend not using equipment as your fallback, because if you hold back a couple years, you didn't just push back the 2 machines that you didn't hold back, or, you didn't purchase, you're pushing back every piece of equipment by that 2 years.
Those costs.
We'll never catch up.
The other thing about that rock, I mean, you can see 1.7 million, then almost 1.9 million, then 2 million, then 2.2 million, but as the price of rock increases, you're actually getting that or less rock for more money.
Nick, do you see, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you're looking at this winter and the amount of snow removal and use of ice or of salt this year. Do you think we're gonna have an excess going into the next year, or what's it look like in your?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking good so far, that we're now, the way that you set up your salt is actually, I believe it's in April. Actually, I think it's in March. You have to have the information to the DOT by March, so you're not even done with your current winter, and you're already trying to determine how many tons of salt you're ordering for the following winter. I would imagine that we're gonna have an excess here, but remember that those DOT contracts, you are required to purchase at least 80%. So you'll still have the
80%
of what we have in here, or what was ordered. Now, you can stockpile that and then in March, make a decision that we're gonna order less next year because we have a larger stockpile from this year. So that's, when you have hardly gone out at all this year, I have to imagine, we haven't ordered salt over in Howard County yet. We're still using the salt that we had excess from last year. So I have to imagine we're gonna have some savings in that as well. But remember, the snow budget isn't as big as a lot of people think. You know, I have people come to me all the time saying, I bet your budget is looking great now because you're not going out plowing. Well, our snow budget is only 300,000 out of a $6.5 million budget. You know,
Yeah.
it's actually not a very big piece of the pie. So the savings, anytime you save anything is great, but it's not as big as a lot of people think it is. Well, if you guys have any other questions, something, or look at the line items and wonder what something is, certainly give Mike call and you have a question to me and I can help them if you can't figure it out. By looking into it. And then.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anything else for us, Michael?
I have nothing.
Are we having fun yet?
Oh, yeah.
100 days in adventure, right?
Please. And Christmas times.
So, we're still on for after the meeting? Sure.
Yes,
That's the idea, is whenever you guys are done.
Okay.
we'll be over.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Oh. Go back up to the 1025, New Year's business, official county newspaper.
Okay, you have to name your official county newspapers. The Driftless Multimedia, which is the Decor newspapers, and Mid-America Publishing, which is the company that owns the Kelmer Courier, have submitted requests to be considered. There may be some debate whether, because of where it's published or where it's mailed, whether the Kelmer Courier is still a county newspaper.
Yeah.
But I guess it's up to you whether you, I asked Andy and he said there's kind of a muddy water about what makes it something a county newspaper or not. And he dug up some attorney general's opinions from 50 plus years ago about, had to do with where they're, what post office they're mailed from and if they have an office or not. So if you want to, he and I to pursue whether to leave that one off because it's not published here, we would have to maybe do a little more research. If you just want to name them again, that's fine too. Our population actually requires us to have 3 official newspapers, but we left 15 years ago. We took Ocean B off because they were not on, they weren't being anything locally anymore.
Be Calmer Courier, decornews.com and Decor Newspapers.
Decornews.com is not a newspaper.
Does it cost us anything to have them as a?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every public hearing, every set of minutes has to be published in all of your official county
How
newspapers.
much is that?
You spend about 15,000 a year, so half of it to each, basically.
And that leaves the county.
So
I guess.
It's getting more and more difficult because it's more and more difficult for
Yeah.
newspapers to exist.
Yeah.
and it specifically says newspaper. And so that's really the rub of the state law requires newspapers. And so even though more and more people get their news from other places, you can't name a online source as your, or we can't just put our minutes on the website and say we've made them available to the public. It requires us to publish them in a newspaper.
So
It's circulated in the county.
So
if we look at list the Driftless and the Courier Journal, we'd actually have 2 newspapers, correct?
No,
It's
because
the same.
it's the same company, but they only publish, they only do the,
Notices.
notice and legals in the Thursday paper. So they don't do legals in the other paper.
why is that?
One is not a newspaper. The Driftless Journal is not a newspaper. The Public Opinion is a newspaper. Now, Kelmer Courier is published by Mid-America in Hampton, and it's mailed out of Kelmer, but it its office is in Postville.
Was mailed out of Calmer,
It is mailed out.
and it does inform a lot of people in the southern part of the county.
And it may be that because it enters, that was part of the Attorney General opinion that Andy sent me, that is, it had to do with where the newspaper entered the mail stream. And so they know that even though they're printing it someplace else, if they bring it to Calmer and
Mail.
send it through the post office, that they now have legally qualified as.
Because I imagine there's a lot of people that pay to get the Calmer Courier in the southern part of our county who don't pay to get the Decorah newspaper on Thursdays. So I think for better transparency and reach and education of our community, I'd like to see us keep Calmer.
Although in the county down there, I hear that there's not much in the Calmer Courier that they're looking for. And so I've heard them drop their subscriptions.
I think that's what papers in general.
Yeah.
I think that's newspapers in
Can't say that,
general.
but-
Sorry, but
But,
No, it's,
It would be good if.
it could be a point too, where everything is not printed here and even.
And the counties, the ISAC has been lobbying the legislature to address this for years.
Yep.
Yeah, like
It'll be up
if
again
you've
this year.
if you've posted them on the internet, on the official county website, that it should be only optional to put things in the newspaper, and,
sure save
But-
us money.
but that is where the law is right now, so.
Yeah, that was an agenda item last year of ISAC, and I'm sure it'll be back on there again this year.
And the law says 2.
Well, our law actually says 3 because of our population. We can't meet 3.
So I think we don't have really a choice then to not do Calmer and Decorah right now until they change that.
All right, is there a motion?
I would move to make Calmer Courier and, what's the official name for Thursday's paper?
For public opinion.
Decorah Public Opinion are 2 official newspapers.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to make Calmer Courier and Decorah Public Opinion our official county newspapers. Is there any further discussion? None, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Holiday schedule.
This one is pretty straightforward. This year, our employee handbook stipulates which dates are county holidays, and there aren't any that fall where they aren't automatically figured out. Last year you had, because it says if it's on Sunday, then you get Monday, but if it's on Saturday, you get Friday. Well, we had Sunday, but Monday was also already a holiday, so you had to decide to put it on Tuesday or Friday. This year, there's no conflict, so it would be the same 10 holidays we get that are already stipulated.
I'd move to approve the holiday schedule.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion?
Can you read the list again?
Yeah.
Because it comes up every year where a community member will ask me, why don't you take that day off? And I'll say. because-
So, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. So this is significantly different from the federal holidays. We don't get Martin Luther King, we don't get presidents, we don't get Juneteenth, we don't, I mean, those are different, but in general, I think our employees like the extra day at Christmas Eve isn't a federal holiday. The day after Thanksgiving isn't a federal
We
holiday.
get those.
So we
And
get
that's what I'm
those
trying to
instead.
say,
Yeah.
so publicly, people know.
Yeah.
We're not getting those other days off because we are choosing to do the days
Used to
after.
be, years ago, that used to be half a day at Good Friday and half a day on the Friday at the county fair. Well, they just decided to make it all day on Good Friday rather than half a day at the county fair. I mean, there have been changes over the years, but yeah, I think our employees appreciate the days we get, even though we actually get fewer than, I think we get 2 fewer than federal holidays.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the holiday schedule. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Mileage, meal, and medical reimbursements.
Currently, you have your mileage rates set. So this was a change I appreciated because each year we would have to change it and then people would wonder when it changed. Now you just have it set at the federal rate. So it just fluctuates when the federal rate fluctuates. So if you're okay with leaving it that way, that makes it a lot easier rather than coming back every time the federal rate changes to try to change it.
So
Meals, we have currently we're a per diem. So we do $30 per day, but we prorate that at $10 per meal. So if you're going to meeting just for the daytime, you give $10 for lunch, whatever it is. And lodging, we have direct cost reimbursements as long as the lodging facility is on the Commissioner of Public Safety's list of lodging facilities that have completed a human trafficking prevention training program. And so there aren't any restrictions on the lodging as long as they've met that requirement. And medical examinations, we currently will pay $75 towards an employee's medical exam if it's one that's required by law, so like DOT physical or something like that, or if it's one that, or an employee that wants a wellness physical but doesn't qualify for our health insurance. So if we have a part-time person who doesn't qualify for our health insurance, we'll still pay $75 towards their wellness exam if they need that.
I'd move to approve the mileage, meal and medical reimbursements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the mileage, meal, lodging, and medical reimbursements. Is there any further discussion? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Appoint the weed commissioner.
I'm assuming Doug will still be your weed commissioner, but it is an annual appointment, so it'd be something.
move to appoint Doug Grew as weed commissioner.
Second.
Motion and a second to appoint Doug Grew as our weed commissioner. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Doug Grew is a weed commissioner. Same weed commissioner, I should say. Construction evaluation resolution, master matrix. We have to approve this.
This is an annual approval. It has to take place in January to start February 1 through the January the following year. So if you want to continue to be able to comment to the DNR on confined animal feeding operations, you have to be able to, or you have to adopt this.
Even though it falls on deaf ears.
Even though it falls on deaf ears, if you don't adopt this, then they won't even listen to your comments.
I move to adopt the construction evaluation resolution master matrix.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the construction evaluation resolution master matrix. Is there any further discussion? This is a resolution. Huh?
Aye.
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 Steve?
Aye.
I also passes unanimously. We'll move down to the miscellaneous. Determine whether to hold meeting in Freeport on January 4th at 7 p.m. I have a conflict of interest. I have a meeting on Thursday night. Just to let you know.
I can go. I'm available.
I would go to that.
If three of us go, it doesn't have to be a public meeting. We just don't make any decisions at it. It'd be great if most of us could go. And if most of us can go, we might as well make it a public meeting and post it.
Yeah, I will post it if I know that at least 3 of you plan to go.
Yeah.
Just so
I
you
would, I
know.
would suggest Doug Bryce, I'm sure would broadcast it on Facebook because he does that with his church services. He could put that up and record it also.
Will you check with them?
I'll check with Doug about that. I'm sure that he would be willing to do that as a courtesy. I think that would be valuable.
So
Are either of you planning to go? So I
No,
don't.
no,
I don't know.
So I
So, but I
wouldn't,
will
I
check
wouldn't
with
need to
Doug.
post it because only 2 of you are planning to go.
I have a REAP meeting.
Is there a chance you guys would go?
I've got other things that I'm committed to, so I really
I
can't.
mean, I would motion we post it as a public meeting in
I mean,
case.
we're having a public hearing on it, so I guess.
but a lot of those people work, so they can't
Yeah.
come to the Monday morning. This would be a courtesy to let them come
So
on a night meeting and have their voices
I
heard.
would motion we make it a meeting in case people do decide to go.
I would second that.
Well, if we already know.
We ain't gonna go, so it's no
We
use.
can't go there, but I'll have Doug, if he records it, it'll be up there available for anyone to be able to see, which is a plus.
A motion in a second, so I guess it's up to you whether you want to.
A motion and a second to make Freeport, January 4, 7 o'clock, public meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Contract with
Dan.
Upper, what?
it's up to you, your chair.
Yeah.
Chairman Langrick, on the 18th, and I requested that there be a official public meeting, and I see that you voted to do that. But I was under the assumption it would be a hearing, whereby other people could come and voice their opinion on the situation, rather than Monday morning for a couple minutes that they couldn't make. There seems to be kind of an inconsistency into how you can schedule public hearings. And the 18th, Mr. Langrick, you said that it would have to be on the agenda in order to schedule a public hearing. Whereby just a few minutes ago, you scheduled one for Mr. Dawley land conflict and scheduled a public hearing.
And that was on the agenda. Mr. Dawley was on the agenda. Whereas the day that, the 18th, the discussion of whether to hold a meeting was not known to this board beforehand. So that's why they put it on today's agenda.
Oh, okay. Well,
It is confusing though, because this doesn't say anything about a motion to vacate anything. It just said Mike Dawley property line issue. And when you were on the December 18th agenda, it said John Beard and Kevin Lee Freeport. I'd have to go back and look at the agenda. So for consistency reasons, I can see where it's confusing to the public because neither one of them said we'd take action on anything.
right. We've been, there's probably going to be a considerable amount of people that will show on the 4th for a meeting. And we couldn't definitely tell them that we were going to have a public hearing or a public meeting, or it was just going to be a discussion amongst people in Freeport. So it kind of left it up in the air.
The meeting was planned prior to us even discussing it.
Here's, I think the question maybe we're getting to here, correct me if I'm wrong. If we were to rescind that motion and that vote and vote again to say, let's make it a public meeting so that the voice concerns we hear that night from people who can't make it to a Monday meeting because they work, could those be collected or recorded or registered somehow in the public hearing notes for the 8th of January meeting? Because they can't make it to the 8th. Because they're at work.
You can present written comments at a public hearing.
From the January 4th meeting.
Anyone can present. I mean, that's part of our standard motion is that usually on the ones that aren't any conflict or aren't like this Dawley one, it'll likely the minutes will say no written or verbal comments were received because usually nobody on one like that, but that you can present both written and verbal comments. So if you want to take notes and present them as part of the record for the public hearing, that is allowed.
So we're
Or as
agreed.
could the public present
Yeah,
for somebody else.
yeah. Written comments can be presented as well as verbal ones at a public hearing.
Here's a question then is, again, going back to whether or not we want to change that vote with this in mind. If it's published as a public meeting, more people would know about it and you're involving the community more in your decision-making process. So if we were to publish the fact that there is a public meeting on January 4th at 7 p.m., if people don't know we're having it on the 4th, the publication can help get that word out so that we're involving the community more in that decision. We're asking for more input on a decision we're making that affects a big part of our community. So I would suggest that we rescind the motion and the vote and consider it again. Whether or not you guys go or not, it's still a public meeting and letting people know that if you have to work on Monday the 8th, here is an opportunity where you can go and have your voice heard. They may not know about it. It's just including the community more and being more transparent.
I'm not in favor of having a public meeting that I'm not able to go to.
But the community can go to. It's letting the
More than
community
welcome
know
to go to it.
if they don't know about it, though. It's letting them know that they have this opportunity for their voices to be heard at an alternative time instead of having to take off work to come to the meeting on Monday.
Then we're gonna start opening up a can of worms every time we have a public hearing. Somebody's gonna go back to this year and say, well, you did it for Freeport, now we're gonna have to do it for everyone down the line too, or what?
Maybe.
I mean, we're gonna have.
I guess I'd go back to, public hearing shouldn't be before we're gonna make action on it following the public hearing. No, I think a public hearing should be a length of time before we take action on something. So it doesn't,
You don't have to take any action on the 8th.
No, but your plan is to take action on the
We
8th.
don't have, but it doesn't matter,
That
plan or
was set
not,
up that way.
it still doesn't make any difference.
I just think it
All
looked a
right, we
lot better.
determined that there's not going to be a public meeting on January 4th, 7 o'clock.
Wait. Not an official public hearing on January 4th at 7 o'clock, but to be clear to those online,
Meeting.
public meeting. To be clear to those maybe listening online or in the room, there still is a meeting, January
Yes,
4th
there is.
in Freeport at 7 o'clock
There's
at the
town
Christian
meeting.
Life Church.
Town meeting. Next,
It's the community meeting.
contract with Upper Explorerland for SRF funding for the Festina Sewer Project.
Yeah, so you have a contract, they're handling the financial end of it for the USDA CDBG grant. They're already been doing that. You already have a contract with them for that. We just, last meeting, signed that to do the state revolving loan fund money and so for them to be able to do the paperwork associated with that, they need them a separate contract to do that. It's the same terms, each hour that Diana works on it, they're gonna bill the loan funds. Either way, it's just, this covers the other type of funds, so we have to have another contract.
This is pretty typical.
Yes, it's very typical. Each funding agency they have to show a contract for handling those funds.
I'd move to approve the contract.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the contract with Upper Explorerland for FYF funding for the Festina Sewer Project. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimous.
Committee reports. There was a discovery of 2 desks that the library had that they were selling. It probably came out of the supervisor's chamber.
They were big with them.
Big wooden.
Yes, they did come from here.
And so there's been, those 2 are going to be sold. And so we've managed to, with Elizabeth Lawrenson was able to get them back. And so it looks like we've maintained both of those desks, those old desks from the original,
They're great.
probably original courthouse desks.
Where are you gonna put them?
I don't know what we're gonna do with them, but we're gonna preserve them. They're really nice piece. I'd like to see, I think maybe we might
Those
end up
big
putting.
slant top ones?
No, they look like.
They're smaller.
they're-
Oh, oh.
We do have the big slant top ones. We have a storage place rented in Freeport. If you need a place to put these in the meantime, until we find where to put them in the building, we can put them in that storage.
Storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, John.
Well, actually, there's more room there now because John actually did get rid of some of the old file cabinets and desks and things at an auction over at Waukon this fall.
We've at least preserved them where they didn't get lost totally.
If they could go in that storage, would be great. I'm not sure in here would be
They're,
necessary with elections.
we could have one for the newspaper.
I think that's a good idea to get them.
And some of them, I think, have some old supervisors' names written on the inside of them and a couple of things that Elizabeth was telling me about.
Hmm.
So that's kind of a nice piece of history, maybe preserved a little bit.
I have one other thing. Remember when Jim Olson was here talking about the borough sewer and they needed new pumps? And so he sent me a bid on the pumps because he didn't know exactly how much. $15,728. And he was for two of them, yes. That's a,
Pretty thought.
yeah, I don't know if this might be the cost for I think these are the costs for the pumps themselves, so it doesn't include any installation or, and it's got all these specs on these pumps. It's way over my head, but you know, he did get that part. He sent it to me. I don't know if you want me to get him on the agenda again or want me just to put an agenda item for you to discuss it again, or what you want to do. I mean, he was hoping that you would at least front the money, if not just absorb the money, because they didn't have it.
I think we should put it on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah. Yep, so that's what, basically, I just want to know how you wanted me to put it on the. And if you want me to get him back in here, do you want to be able to, I mean, not inconvenience him
We
if
know
he's,
what.
I'll let him know about it, but if we put it on the agenda and that you're gonna talk about how you want to do it, then he could or couldn't come or whatever.
And you might ask him if that is an installation.
I'm pretty sure the way I read this, it is just the pumps, but it might be that
They can.
they can
maybe-
install them. It might be that their operator is going to install them too. So it might be something I could get some more
Must be
information.
that tough a job.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Fred's their
they pull
operator.
the pumps themselves on a regular basis anyway.
Yeah, to clean them.
And Fred
Yeah.
Phillips does those.
So anyway, I'll put that on next week. Next week is even fuller than this week. So I'll see when I can squeeze that on the agenda, but so we can let them know how they should succeed. I mean, I think you basically told them that you would work with them so they could get them in there, whether we were gonna ask for a payback over a certain number of years or something we can discuss next time it's
Yeah.
on the agenda.
I think it's gonna be one or the other, but I think it wouldn't even hurt if encourage him to be able to get them ordered, because they're gonna be hurting to need.
Yeah.
By the time they get,
Before
lead
it
time and
goes
get
out,
them,
then
and
they got
then when they
nothing,
get into
yeah.
spring and people are back there occupying the sites up there that are also part of their total load, that might
Good
be,
point.
it might be important to try to move.
So maybe I can, in the email, it does say here that I think it said on here something on like 4 weeks of time just to get them delivered. So
I would
maybe
say.
let them know to get them ordered and you'll talk
We'll
about,
decide how to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or what's gonna.
and then I'll ask them too about to verify the installation information. Okay.
Real quick, the registration's open, I think now today. No, it'll open Wednesday. Today's Tuesday. Registration opens tomorrow for the Martin Conference and get your hotels reserved for ISAC.
There's the February supervisors.
Yep.
Meeting.
And there's also ISAC school in January for those that want to attend it.
Are
And then,
you going to is anyone going to the supervisors meeting? I said.
I don't
I-
really see a benefit for that one,
I have, it,
but
that's on February 8th from 8 to noon.
yeah, it's a very short meeting. The March one, I'm definitely planning on attending.
And March is the 14th and 15th. I'll pick on the night of the 13th.
Whatever do I want to know if we have the extra money, they could throw it at their fire truck. I said I'd bring it up. They said anything would help.
January 19th is what the ethics report.
Talk to these guys, I have no idea.
Said, well, let's see. Yeah, they brought it up.
Here's the
Hey,
DC
Other times,
515-28.
we haven't, except for that, Decorah ladder truck. The county did put money towards that. But other towns have bought trucks and we've helped them finance them, but they make the
I
payments.
got his name.
We just like co-sign basically to help them get the loan.
If we're running next year, have a campaign.
But Ridgway being an actual city versus one of the rural ones might be able to do that on their own.
Yep. Keep it open You got to file still.
Actually, I think you still do have to, file, even if you're
File,
not running,
even if you're
by
not running.
January 19th,
Yeah.
for the ethics, report.
Yeah.
Through Tim Ani.
So I would have to file.
I think you
You
do,
have to file.
If you opened it and didn't close it.
right, if you still have an account open for your campaign. I gotta go find mine.
Mine's closed.
All right.
It's your wallet,
Does
wasn't it?
anyone have anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second for adjournment. All those in favor, say aye.
Right.
Planning and zoning tonight?
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment. City Council in Spillville. Last night was
I forgot to give you guys all an update on it.
Palmer. City Council. But their city website said the 15th.
That was next one.
I'll be sure for next week to figure out what was up with the link, which I saw was off, and try to change that setting in that meeting to make sure it doesn't ding each time someone wants to.
I hope you can find in that
I
recording.
didn't think to do that.
I'll let you
I
know.
know that is.
Let everybody
I'm
know.
telling you, that's amazing.
It's
to me.
BS. I mean, like off the record, but just go talk to Tony and Doug if you have any questions about that construction happening on Highlandville Road, north of Highlandville, that's come up to several of us from community members. Talk to Tony and Doug and they'll give you an update.
It's still not. Is that,
No, it's a UTV track possibly going in and
oh, I talked to Tony about that.
I've got community members asking me and I've told them, go talk to them. They've got all the facts.
Tony told me this morning, because I asked him about the issue of the Board of Adjustment meeting.
Yeah.
Where they were kind of considering the property for
See you guys later.
their use. And I asked him about that on Peel. The Peel said, he said he talked with Peel and he went out and looked at it. He said there's, obviously they've got some motocross track that they drive on, but nothing looks commercial.